Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. In this video we're going to be talking about 23 books to get you into reading in 2023. I read a total of 79 books in the year of 2022, and honestly these are some of my favorite reads. I made a video where I talked about all of my best and worst books for 2022, so if you want to check that out, it's gonna be probably linked down below. But right now I want to talk about 23 books that can really get you into reading in the year of 2023. Stand Alone, called Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I got into this book because of Haley Pham. She's pretty much the one that put this book in the map, and this is pretty much an enemies to lovers YA romance, and it's really cute because every single chapter has a quote from a rom-com from the 90s, early 2000s, and I think that's just such a nice touch. This is a really sweet romance, no spice. I think it's appropriate for like any age. So if you want to check it out, it's about this girl who lost her mom, who used to be really obsessed with rom-coms, and she kind of goes through life like romanticizing the idea of being in a relationship and things like that. And then there's Wes, her neighbor, and they kind of make a deal to make this one guy jealous so she can start dating this one guy she has a crush on, and it kind of goes from there. So I definitely recommend this book. First book of a series. This is The Inheritance Games. If you've been around my channel since like day one, you know this is one of my all-time favorite series. I became obsessed with this series and have never looked back. This is a 3-book series currently, but I think the author is actually gonna turn it into a little bit of a bigger series. This is like about puzzles and riddles, and I don't really know how to put this book into words. It's also YA. There is a little bit of romance, there is a love triangle, there's a two-brother trope. It's about this girl Avery. She gets this fortune that this billionaire from Texas left her, and she has no idea who this guy is, but she randomly gets an inheritance. And a lot goes down in this book, so I definitely recommend. First book in the Shatter Me series. Personally, this is not my favorite, but it is a book that could potentially get you into reading because the way she writes, it's so like stream of consciousness kind of thing, and it's so fast to read. And I read this book in like one sitting, and the font is like really big. This is also the first book that I ever tapped. But this book can definitely get you into reading. The world pretty much is ending, and there's this girl that if you touch her you die, and that's all I'm gonna say. The first book in the Magnolia Park series. This book was my life in 2022. I have mixed reviews about this book, but I personally really loved it. It's about this elite young people in London, really rich people. It's almost like Gossip Girl set in London, and this book is about Magnolia Park, which is she's like the main character. And it's a very toxic relationship, so do keep that in mind. And then from the same series, I really liked Daisy Heights, The Great Undoing Daisy Heights. This is the 4th book in the series. I personally didn't like the first Daisy Heights books as much, but this one I loved. I'm obsessed with Julian, which is one of the characters in this book. I am obsessed with this book. It almost made me cry. But this is like a mafia romance. It's the second one. You're supposed to technically read one book before this one, but I'm obsessed with this one. This book can definitely get you into reading. We've got You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hugo. This book really took me by surprise. So this is not like your typical romance. These people are already engaged and they really hate each other, and they kind of like make each other's lives impossible because they want one of them to call the engagement. And I love this book with all my heart. It's a 5-star read, a very unusual romance. You need to read this, and it's very short. This can potentially get you into reading. I have recommended this book on my channel multiple times, but it is Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. Yes, I have 2 different covers. I had to buy this cover when it came out. This is a friends to lovers kind of situation, so it takes you through like from back and forth between the past and the present. And so pretty much these 2 teenagers met at a lake house. It wasn't like a cabin, and they kind of bonded over their love for reading. So it's just about people who love to read, which I love reading books about that. And then they start dating, and then something happens, and they didn't really start dating, so they were really close, but then something happens and they don't see each other for many years, and he doesn't know what really happened, and the reveal is shocking. So I definitely recommend this one. I'm getting huge right here next to me. 9 Days by Katie Cotugno. This is not a book that gets talked about too much. I saw Haley Pham read this book. That's what put it on the map for me. I don't think this one took off as much as Better Than the Movies did. For me it did. This book holds a really special place in my heart. It is written like a diary entry type of book. It's a very cool read. So this girl goes back to her hometown where something really huge happened to her. Her mom's a writer, and her mom wrote a story about something that happened to her, so everyone in the town hates her. There is a love triangle that's very freaking interesting. The reveal also really got me. There's a trope in this book that not a lot of people like, but this will definitely get you into reading. It is such a short book and so easy to read, and it's a YA romance with no spice. Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This is not one of my favorite books, but if there's a book that can definitely get you into reading, it's this one. This is a small town romance about this boy, and this girl just like randomly moves to this town to like start over pretty much, and then she meets this guy, and I don't want to spoil it for you, but there's a lot of drama. It's almost like a less traumatic Colleen Hoover book in a sense, and that's why I feel like a lot of people like it. But I mean, it is different. It's not exactly like Colleen Hoover books. This is a good starting point if you want to get into reading this year. Seven Husbands, Evelyn Hugo, another book that's very popular that blew up on BookTok. This book is more of a historical fiction. Not really. It's just fiction. Like, there is not a romance or anything like that. The way Taylor Jenkins writes this book, where like interviews are involved, wow, like she's so good at that. Evelyn Hugo is a very, I don't want to say she's an anti-hero, but she's not a character that's very likable character, but you just kind of have to read this and your own opinion about it. I personally had a very mixed review. Gave it 4 out of 5 stars, but it just kind of left me thinking a little bit. So it's good when a book just kind of makes you think about it for a little while. So that is this book. It could definitely get you into reading. Celebrities like even Hailey Bieber read this book in 2022, so I definitely recommend. Got Beach Read by Emily Henry. I don't even think I have to go into detail about this book. It's an enemies to lovers book. She moves to this lake house that his dad left her. There's a lot of grief in the book, and then she discovers that right next to her, this guy that she went to college with, that they hate each other, lives next door. And then yeah, small town romance kind of vibes, enemies to lovers, best freaking romance, one of the best romances I've ever read. This is Rock Paper Scissors by Alice Feeney. This book got put in the map by Sarah Carolyn, in my opinion. That's where I first heard about it. There is a plot twist in every single chapter, and it's one of the best thrillers I've read in 2022. It's about this couple that goes to this cabin, like the snow. It's like a wintry read a little bit, and then a lot of big revealing stuff happens. They don't really like each other. There's a lot of tension. You need to read this for the reveals alone. Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is a very controversial book in many ways. I think it was even banned in Israel or something like that. I personally really like this book. It's very short, but it's not easy to read, so I'll say that. I personally really liked it. It's about these two very different teenagers that go to school together, and they kind of, I wouldn't say fall in love, but there's a lot of like back and forth between their relationship, and it takes you through the years too, so you kind of see the development of each character, how they kind of grow out of who they used to be in high school. It's amazing. We've got a really sad book. This is If You Had Been With Me by Lauren Nolan. This is a very sad book. Okay, so a lot of trigger warnings. If you want to look them up, that's okay. They might kind of spoil the book for you. It's about this, it's kind of like a friends to lover situation. They have been best friends since they were kids, right in front of each other, and then they kind of grow apart when they're teenagers, and a lot goes down. But this book can definitely get you into reading. Just make sure you're like in the right mental space to read. It's a very sad book. These are are pretty serious. I've talked about series many times. There's even a TV show right now that a lot of people have watched without even reading the book, which is totally fine. But there is a book series about this. This is where the show came from. I highly recommend. Love triangle, friends to lovers, beach setting, the best freaking summer book ever. It's a YA romance. She has grown up with these two guys, and she has a huge crush on one of them. And there's some stuff that goes on that I can't really get into because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but you gotta read this. It will definitely get you into reading. Love and Gelato. I don't really see a lot of people talk about this book. They made a movie. Do not watch that movie. It's horrible. But the book is actually pretty good. So this is, it looks like a 12-year-old book. It is not. This is like a romance with a little bit of mystery in it. So this one girl is sent to Italy to spend like the summer there because her mom passed away, and that was like her last wish for her to spend some time with her father in Italy, who she has never really met. And there's just a lot of reveals that happen in this book. So the mystery and the romance, I love the back and forth. There's a little bit of a love triangle. It's a great book to get you into reading. Also a YA romance. That a Colleen Hoover book. Yes, I know, don't shoot me. This author is very controversial. I personally like her books, but I feel like I have grown out of recommending her books a lot, so I'm only gonna be recommending one of her books, which is not like her typical books. She's known to write romances, which I really wouldn't call her books romances because they're so freaking traumatic. But this is a thriller, and I feel like she should stick to writing thrillers because this one was pretty good. This is actually kind of like a thriller slash romance, which I've never read before, but it's about this one author that has this request for this other author to finish a series that she started because she's like incapable of doing it anymore because she's really sick. And then this girl moves into the house of the author where her husband lives, and then she realizes that the author is like in really bad condition. And yeah, there's just a lot goes on in this book. I can't even get into it, but it will get you into reading, that's a fact. We've got The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the same author that wrote The Inheritance Games. Books do not disappoint. This is like about these teenagers that get recruited by the FBI because they have these special talents. There's also a love triangle in this book, which I love. And this series needs to get more credit because I think it's just as good as the Inheritance Games. I'm currently in book number 2. I'm also in the middle of a lot of series, so I don't know when I'll finish it. But this first book really got me into it. And yeah, I highly recommend. It will definitely get you into reading. This book is also very controversial because the beginnings of this book were in Wattpad, which I never really was a Wattpad person. I honestly found out about Wattpad when I started getting into reading community. But this book will get you into reading. I'll say that. It's a very fun ride. It's not well written. Don't go into thinking this is a well written book. This is a warning. It's really thick, but it's actually really quick to read. It's a series. I've only read the first book, and I think I started reading the second book. I liked it. There's a lot of movies about it. It's kind of a fun ride. That's all I can say. Grumpy Sunshine. She goes to college, meets this really grumpy, like bad guy kind of thing, and it's just fun. If you want to get into that, I recommend this book. Got Every Summer After by Carly Fortune, my bad. This book became huge in BookTok in 2022, and there's a reason why. This girl meets this guy at the lake house, then they kind of start dating, and also it goes kind of like back and forth. Something really big happens and they have a falling out, and then she goes back into town because the mom passed away on the guy's side, and a lot of reveals we become aware of. I think it was really not well written, and it is very similar to The Summer I Turned Pretty, Days, and Love and Other Words. It's almost like all those books combined into one. I personally love this book, and I'll recommend this book to like every single person. The Little Secrets of Jennifer Hillier. I don't think this book gets talked about enough. This was recommended to me by a YouTuber once, and this is about this one lady whose son goes missing, and then the ride that you get taken on this thriller, it's huge. This thriller author deserves way more credit than she gets because this book was amazing. I couldn't put it down. Got The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. This is a no explicit scenes romance. It's about this girl. She's a bodyguard, and she gets sent to protect this actor, but then they had to kind of fake date, so there's a little bit of fake dating there because his family doesn't know that he's like in danger or something. It's just like an amazing fun book. Her writing has gotten compared to Jane Austen before, which I don't really agree with, but this is a really fun book, and I think it'll really get you into reading. It is so short too, as you can probably tell. So yeah, it's a very fun romance, and this is the last book that I'll be talking about. These are 23 books to get you into reading in the year of 2023. The reason why I decided to make this video is because I've noticed that reading has become really popular, and I feel like a lot of people's goals for this year include reading or reading a few books. So these books will definitely get you into reading, and I really hope you enjoyed this video and like my recommendations, and I would really appreciate it if you guys hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in another book video. Bye guys.